Every year in the NBA, we usually see a few stories where players come out of nowhere and become really good players that help their teams. These are players that either never got picked in the draft or guys who moved around a lot and never really got a good chance, or even players from the minor leagues who got called up and made the most of it. When these players finally do well, they become cool stories that make it really easy for fans to cheer for them. This season's version of this happening is coming from a breakout player named Udo Watanabe from the Brooklyn Nets. And wow, is he making his mark in a way his team really needs. There hasn't really been much to be happy about for the Nets so far this season, but Watanabe becoming the best shooter in the NBA right now is definitely one good thing. So in this video, we'll be taking a closer look at how all of this even happened. We'll be talking about his journey to get here, why it has taken him so long to stand out, and what this means for him going forward. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is really appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. Udo Watanabe came up as a Japanese young man who was looking to beat the odds in the NBA world. Asian players hadn't been seen much in basketball for a long time, but Jeremy Lin and his early crazy run really did an amazing job back then of inspiring a new group of Asian BSKE players to chase their dreams in the sport. That craziness all happened in 2012, and in 2013, Watanabe traveled to America to play his last high school basketball season to hopefully earn a scholarship to a big college program. This was progress that we hadn't really ever seen from a Japanese player before, and this momentum was definitely getting noticed by the Japanese public, as the newspaper, the Japan Times, wrote an article about him, calling him their chosen one, which is definitely a pretty big title. By the end of that senior season, Watanabe was a modest 3-star recruit on the websites of ESPN and Scout.com. So he wasn't really a player being chased after by big-name college programs, but he did have offers from Fordham and George Washington University, and ended up choosing to play for George Washington. This was a huge milestone for the Asian basketball community for a bunch of reasons, but the biggest reason of all being that Watanabe became the first Japanese player to ever be given a Division I basketball scholarship, and he was just the fourth Japanese man to ever play at the Division I level. With so much support behind him before even stepping on the court, he had profiles written about him in national basketball newspaper outlets such as the New York Times and the Washington Post. He had previous Asian basketball players speaking out their support of him and his journey, and obviously he was a pretty popular player with a big fan base because of all of this. Now, as an actual basketball player, Watanabe and his play style was actually a bit different back then compared to what he is making headlines for now. As a 6 feet 8 inches forward, Watanabe had great size and length to be used in different ways at a time when playing multiple positions was becoming more popular than ever. So the timing of his rise could not have been better. Watanabe obviously had the ability to score, but he wasn't really a scorer by nature, as his way to get playing time early on at George Washington actually came through defense. He was definitely not guaranteed anything on the court when he first arrived, so he had to work his way into any role he was given. And what won the coaches over was his never give up effort and natural instincts on the defensive end. Watanabe played all 4 years at George Washington, and every year he got better and better, with his hard work leading to 2 seasons being named to the conference's all-defense team, a third-team all-conference nomination his senior year, and he was even named his conference's Defensive Player of the Year his senior season as well. He did average a career-high 16 points in his senior season, but he was never anything more than an average shooter. So despite his defensive efforts, he did not end up hearing his name called in the 2018 NBA draft. This wasn't the end of the Rode for him though, obviously, as he did get to play for the Brooklyn Nets Summer League team, and then he got picked up by the Memphis Grizzlies on a two-way contract where he would begin his NBA career. He spent most of his time down in the minor leagues during this time in Memphis, but when he played with the team, he became the second Japanese player to ever play in the NBA, giving his home country more recognition on an even bigger stage. His first 2 seasons were spent in Memphis, where he would play 55 games in the minor leagues, compared to making just 33 appearances with the Memphis Grizzlies in that time. In minor leagues, he wasn't bad by any means, as he was scoring about 17 points per game by the end of it, and he was playing good defense too. But the minor leagues are filled with talent that puts up numbers. So that wasn't exactly the kind of production that was making a difference. After 2 seasons there, the Grizzlies chose not to bring him back. So he was once again at a point where he was promised nothing unless he earned it. The Toronto Raptors brought him in on an Exhibit 10 contract, which is basically a deal where the player participates in training camp, but then more than likely gets released before the rosters get finalized. But Watanabe worked his butt off to stick around and impressed the coaching staff enough to have his contract changed to a two-way deal once again to stay with the Raptors. And Toronto is also where Watanabe began playing his first taste of real minutes in a rotation outside of garbage time, as he played about 15 minutes per game in his first year and then 12 minutes per game in his second year with the team. But again, after 2 seasons, the Raptors chose not to bring him back. In the NBA, Watanabe has just been trying to do what he can to stick around, but you could tell that early on he was getting lost in the moment, trying to do too much. For him to stick around, he was going to have to embrace the role as a 3 and D player because his defensive abilities were already what was getting him opportunities. But his shooting is where teams were hesitant to trust him. In his career prior to this season, he was shooting just 35% from 3 on very low volume. And also in the minor leagues where he was playing more consistently, he was also making just 36% of his threes, which isn't exactly good enough for a role player to be expected to be a specialist in that area. This, to Watanabe's credit, is exactly what he came to realize. So this summer he worked incredibly hard to improve his shooting form, and when the Brooklyn Nets signed him to yet another Exhibit 10 contract this summer, they likely weren't even expecting that much. But his new and improved shooting form was ready to go during training camp. Watanabe actually discussed his thought process going into a new situation with the media, saying that he understands that the Nets have superstar talent that can do the scoring. So he just wants to bring energy on defense like he always has. And more importantly, he discussed how he was focusing on improving as a spot-up shooter to take advantage of the open looks that he could get, saying that his goal was to shoot 40% from 3. Well, it's still early on in the season, but at the current moment, Watanabe is leading the entire NBA in three-point percentage, making 57% of his shots from deep. And it's not only a feel-good story, but a genuinely impactful diamond in the rough find for a Nets team that desperately needed it. Basketball is a game all about confidence, and when Watanabe's shots started falling, everything else seemed to fall into place with his game too. Because he's been an active cutter off the ball, he's been making key stops on defense, and he was playing about 20 minutes a night or more for them over the last 11 games. Unfortunately, he's missed the last 4 games because of a hamstring injury, but it's not said to be too serious, so he will be back out on the court again soon as well. Obviously, there are times when a player catches fire and then goes back to his former self, proving to be a bit fluky, but I truly do not believe that what Watanabe is doing right now is a fluke. He's a smart two-way player who has finally found a situation where those around him trust him in his role, and he has the size and athleticism to hang at this level. For someone of Kyrie Irving's stature to be calling him the best shooter and the league and to say that he wants to reward him for making the lives of everyone else around him easier, then I think that speaks very highly of how he's viewed by his peers. For role players like him, the name of the game is 3&D, and the defensive side of things was always his bread and butter. But now that the three-point shooting is catching fire, he might be on his way to earning himself a huge payday for the first time of his career. Next time contracts need to be negotiated, and after the journey that he's been on, he has more than deserved it. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about Udo Watanabe and his NBA journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.